So is that everything you hoped for?
Jury's still out. But man, can't deny that view.
Come on, this way.
Over the past couple of years, The Last of Us has gone from a franchise I was vaguely familiar with to maybe my favourite thing in the world. After the TV show made me fall in love with Joel and Ellie, I quickly picked up the games and have since played and replayed them more times than I can recall. I've sunk hundreds upon hundreds of hours into these games, and I still find myself discovering new things every time I sit down and let this series break my heart all over again. On the surface, The Last of Us might seem like a typical survival story set against a zombie apocalypse, but it goes so much deeper than that. It's a love story about a surrogate father and daughter who have nothing but each other and will do anything to protect each other. It has a lot to say about humanity and family and grief and how to find the light when you're lost in the darkness. During my many playthroughs, I've amassed plenty of observations about this incredible story, so here's a complete, comprehensive analysis of The Last of Us. This video will obviously contain full spoilers for The Last of Us Part 1, but I should also warn you ahead of time that in discussing some of the ways Part 1 sets up plot points for Part 2, I had to spoil parts of Part 2, so enter at your own peril.
Jimmy, I am warning you! Don't! Tommy!
Sarah? Baby? Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Come on.
The prologue of The Last of Us is a perfectly told standalone zombie outbreak story with a gripping opening and a heartbreaking ending. It could be an amazing little horror short on its own, but it's just the beginning of this epic saga. Joel comes home after a long day of work a few minutes before midnight, and his 12-year-old daughter Sarah gives him his birthday present, a new watch. This might seem like an innocuous little throwaway moment to show some everyday normalcy right before everything goes to shit, but that watch will become a key piece of symbolism throughout the entire story. All throughout Part 1 it represents Joel's connection to Sarah, and then in Part 2 it represents Ellie's connection to Joel. You first take control when Sarah is woken up in the middle of the night by a frantic phone call from her uncle, Joel's younger brother Tommy. On the first playthrough, Sarah's bedroom just seems like a generic 12-year-old girl's bedroom, but it's full of crucial details that either establish the universe or foreshadow future events in the story. There's a poster for a Twilight-style supernatural YA romance called Dawn of the Wolf hanging on the wall. Over the course of the games, Dawn of the Wolf will come up in every form from gameplay dialogue to dilapidated billboards in the street to a porn parody. And it also sets up a great moment later on when Ellie sees a Dawn of the Wolf poster and asks Joel about it. But we'll get to that. You can also read Joel's birthday card, which has a dinosaur on the cover. This doesn't mean anything on your first playthrough, but dinosaurs are going to become pretty important to this story. I don't think Naughty Dog put a T-Rex on Joel's birthday card because they knew they'd have Ellie climb a T-Rex in Part 2, although if they did, bravo. But it does establish a similarity between Ellie and Sarah. They're both funny. They both make fun of Joel's advanced age by comparing him to a dinosaur.
Oh, hello, sorry, the dinosaurs are busy right now.
What are you doing?
Oh, wait, one of the dinosaurs is here. Joel, it's for you.
We first see Sarah's sense of humor when Joel asks her where she got the money to pay for the watch.
Where did you get the money for this?
Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs.
And lastly, on your way out of Sarah's room, you see a giraffe toy. This exemplifies the replayability of these games. On the first playthrough, if you even notice it, that giraffe toy is just a giraffe toy. But when you replay the story, you're instantly taken back to the most beautiful moment in the game. And that's not the only giraffe Naughty Dog snuck in there. The giraffe symbolism pops up all throughout the game. There are even giraffes painted on the walls of the pediatric ward at St. Mary's Hospital. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, we'll get to the giraffes later. Sarah leaves her room and goes down a dark hallway to her dad's room, only to find that he's not there. Opening from a child's perspective of the outbreak was a genius move. If you were playing as Joel with a shotgun in hand, at least you'd be somewhat ready for action. Playing as Sarah in her pajamas in the middle of the night, seemingly home alone, you're completely vulnerable. It establishes the theme of childhood innocence against this bleak, hopeless reality, which is pretty much what the giraffes symbolize. The Last of Us is the closest gaming experience I've had to watching a movie where you get to be the main characters and live the movie. I know what I just described as a story-driven game, and story-driven games are nothing new, but I've never played a story-driven game that's as deeply cinematic as The Last of Us. Unlike most video games, but exactly like most movies, your experience of the story is passive. You're in control of the characters, but you're not in control of their choices. The story is being told to you. From the offset, there's a really eerie atmosphere that's reminiscent of the very best horror films. This opening sequence builds up the scale of the disaster spectacularly. First, the TV signal cuts out in Joel's room, then Sarah sees explosions outside the window not too far away from her house, then she sees a convoy of police cars whizzing past the front window, then she hears a dog being brutally killed in the back garden. With each successive jump scare, the carnage is getting closer and closer. Finally, you find Joel, just as their neighbor Jimmy comes smashing through the patio door and goes to attack them. This is our first of many encounters with the infected. Joel loads his revolver just in time to shoot Jimmy in the head, protecting Sarah but also terrifying her.
You shot him.
Sarah,
I saw him this morning.
listen to me. There is something bad going on.
Tommy arrives, they jump in his car, and Sarah sits in the back seat, watching the world end around her. This is another early sign of the beautifully cinematic nature of this game. When Sarah's sitting in the back of the car, we're just an observer. In most games, you'd get to drive the car, but here you just sit back and watch. You can move the camera to see what you want to. You're not an active participant, you're just watching the apocalypse unfold from a totally helpless position. Like I said, it's like watching a movie you get to be a part of. When they pass a family in a broken down car in need of help, Joel tells Tommy to keep driving. Both Tommy and Sarah think they should stop to help them, but Joel only cares about keeping Sarah safe. He won't stop to help anyone else if he thinks there's even a slim chance it could put Sarah at risk. So Tommy reluctantly keeps driving and leaves the family to fend for themselves. I love Sarah's line.
You should have helped him.
She recognizes that Joel is the grown-up and she won't change his mind, but she still wants to say her piece. This is another similarity to Ellie. Ellie, like Sarah, is always trying to do the right thing, and that often means disagreeing with Joel. This prologue lays all the groundwork for the game. It shows how devastating the outbreak was, and how quickly society descended into savagery. The not-so-brave new world is born. But the prologue isn't just there to introduce the apocalypse that destroyed the world. It also shows us the unspeakable tragedy that destroyed Joel's soul. After the car is totaled and Sarah's leg is broken, suddenly you're playing as Joel and you have to carry Sarah the rest of the way. They narrowly avoid explosions and car crashes and desperately fend off infected on their way out of town. While Tommy draws the infected away, Joel takes Sarah to get help. As they're chased down a hill, the infected cast a really long shadow. This was a nice touch because it makes it hard to tell how close they are and creates the illusion that they're rapidly closing in. They're saved by a nearby soldier and Joel asks him to help with Sarah's leg, but then the soldier gets orders to kill them both. As Joel tries to turn away, the soldier opens fire and he falls down the hill. Tommy takes care of the soldier and Joel is unscathed, but Sarah has taken a lethal gunshot. Joel frantically tries to put pressure on the wound, but after a few moments of utter horror and confusion, Sarah dies in his arms. Hannah Hayes nails the death scene. It's such an emotional gut punch because she makes Sarah's pain and fear feel completely real. It feels like we're actually watching a child die.
I know, baby, I know. Listen to me, I know this hurts you. You're gonna be okay, baby, stay with me.
Troy Baker nails Joel's reaction too.
Sarah. Baby.
As he realizes Sarah's gone, the way the breath is taken out of him on Baby is so powerful. It reminds me of Laura Bailey's breathless nose when Abby finds her dad dead in part 2. Rather than giving Joel a cliched line like, "Don't die on me, man," Neil Druckmann gives Joel a much more unique and realistic response to Sarah's death.
Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Come on.
He can't fathom losing this kid. She's his entire world, and as far as he's concerned, without her, life won't be worth living. Baker plays the emotional devastation of this scene beautifully. In The Last of Us' making of documentary, Grounded, you see an early take of this scene in which Baker played it a bit bigger, and it wasn't really working.
Don't do this, please, God, no. Oh, God, no.
When he pared it back and played it a bit smaller, the emotions came through, and it suddenly hit a lot harder.
Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Come on.
I understand where that original choice came from. This is the absolute lowest point of Joel's entire life. Of course he'd be heartbroken. But the final, more understated version of this scene highlights that sometimes less is more. Initially, it seems as though this prologue only serves to introduce the game's post-apocalyptic setting, and it does that brilliantly. But when it reaches its heart-wrenching conclusion, it becomes clear that the real reason for this opening sequence is to show us how Joel became the way he is. If the story began 2 decades into a zombie apocalypse and introduced Joel as an aging, grizzled, emotionally closed-off smuggler, we wouldn't connect with him as much. Sarah's death immediately makes us empathize with Joel and understand why he's closed himself off. It's like the opening of Finding Nemo. It puts a particular tint on the story that follows, and the story wouldn't be nearly as effective without it. It makes us live through Joel's trauma, and so begins The Last of Us.
The number of confirmed deaths has passed 200. The governor has called a state of emergency.
There are hundreds and hundreds of bodies lining the streets.
Gustavo Santaolla's iconic theme kicks in on the soundtrack as The Last of Us launches into its opening title sequence. According to Druckmann's commentary, The Last of Us originally didn't have a standalone opening credits sequence, but when they were testing the game, they found that Sarah's death was so unbelievably heartbreaking that the player needed some time to process it. And it works a lot better that way. If there wasn't a credits sequence to bridge the gap, the time jump would feel far too abrupt. The opening credits are backed up by really cool imagery, monochromatic time-lapse photography of fungus growing over the course of a few days, and the voiceover narration sets the scene spectacularly. As you hear snippets of news reports about rations running low, vaccination tests failing, rebels fighting back against Fedra, and the Fireflies rising up, you really feel the 20 years pass, and you get a sense of the rich texture of this world before the story begins proper.
Watch it. Help me. My mask broke. Don't leave me to turn. Back, get the fuck back!
Just want to talk, Robert.
Fuck away from me! Look, I'm not supposed to tell you why you're smuggling me, if that's what you're getting at.
You don't know the best thing about my job. I don't gotta know why. To be honest with you, I give 2 shits what you're up to.
Your watch is broken.
Joel wakes up with a start, which will become a recurring thing in this franchise, as his partner Tess comes in with a black eye and a caption tells us it's 20 years later. This time jump is a massive surprise the first time you experience the story, not just because it skips ahead from the tragedy we just witnessed, but because it skips so far ahead. The caption might as well say Joel's been living with immense grief and misery and despair for 20 years. This older, grizzled Joel is a completely different person than the young, naive Joel we saw in the prologue. When we saw Joel's loving daughter surprise him on his birthday with a new watch, he was living his best life. Now he's been living his worst life for 2 whole decades. He's been living with Sarah's death weighing on his mind for almost twice as long as Sarah was alive. The TV adaptation is much more explicit about the nature of Joel and Tess's relationship, as they're shown sleeping together, but the game is a bit more ambiguous. It's established that Tess is the boss and Joel is the muscle who does what she says. They also clearly have real feelings for each other. It's not entirely a business relationship, but the actual extent of those feelings is open to interpretation.
It's like we're on a date.
Well, I am the romantic type.
You got your ways.
I love the fact that Tess calls Joel Texas.
All right, Texas. Boost me up. Nicely done, Texas.
This recurring pet name is just a little detail, but it really sells the storied history of their relationship. Whether they're romantic partners or not, they've been partners for a long time. When he sees Tess's black eye, Joel is annoyed that he wasn't there to protect her. It's instantly apparent that although he's closed himself off emotionally, he never lost his protective streak. He still wants to protect the people he cares about, more so now than ever because he's experienced the worst possible kind of loss. We find out later that this is what drove Tommy away. Joel was determined to keep Tommy safe at any cost, but Tommy doesn't think every price is necessarily worth paying. Joel and Tess have paid a local arms dealer named Robert for some guns, but he's flaked on the deal, so they go after him. As they head towards Robert's lair, we see that life in the quarantine zone is anything but ideal. There are public executions, dwindling food supplies, and fireflies bombing checkpoints. It's very dystopian. Armed guards patrolling rooftops, people getting gunned down in the street. It's like 1984 on steroids. The QZ feels grimy and lived in. It has the same dirty, banged up, used future aesthetic seen in Star Wars and Alien. It's really immersive, and that enhances the storytelling. These early scenes at the Boston QZ form the necessary section of any game where you learn the controls. How to walk, how to run, how to crouch, how to collect supplies, how to craft and equip health kits, how to shoot, how to kill, how to reload, how to pick up ladders, how to lay down planks, how to open shutters. But it's not the usual how-to tutorial stuff. Naughty Dog gets really creative with it. When it teaches you how to load and fire a gun, you have to decide whether to put an infected smuggler out of his misery.
My mask broke. Don't leave me to turn.
This is a rare time when the player has to make their own moral choice, and it establishes that this story is all about moral choices. These Boston QZ scenes mostly serve to set up plot stuff. Joel and Tess need guns, Robert sold their guns to the Fireflies, the leader of the Fireflies, Marlene, is willing to give Joel and Tess the guns they're owed, but she wants them to earn them by doing a smuggling job for the Fireflies. All these plotty twists and turns give your emotions a chance to settle after the heart-wrenching opening. There are no children dying here, just some relatively low-stakes external conflicts. The dialogue with Marlene reveals what happened between Joel and Tommy. Tommy served the Fireflies for some time, but before that he walked out on Joel. It's still ambiguous as to when or why Tommy left Joel, but it was clearly a while ago, and Joel is clearly still harboring some hard feelings about it.
I was close with his brother Tommy. Said if I was ever in a jam, I could rely on him.
Was that before or after he left your little militia group?
He left you too.
After dispatching some soldiers on a patrol, Marlene takes Joel and Tess to her hideout to see the cargo she wants them to smuggle. And then we get our inciting incident, the true beginning of the story, as Joel meets Ellie. As Joel helps an ailing Marlene through the door, Ellie comes at him swinging, switchblade in hand.
Fuck away from her!
That first line tells us everything we need to know about this character. She's scrappy, she's fiercely loyal to her friends, and she's got a mouth like a sailor. Initially, Joel and Ellie can't stand each other. Joel is completely dismissive of Ellie. He doesn't even want to look after her for a couple of hours, while Tess goes with Marlene to verify she has the merchandise. And Ellie doesn't want to be left alone with a grumpy old stranger. Ellie is distrusting of anyone other than Marlene at this point, and Joel resents being put on babysitting duty. Their friendship is off to a great start. Joel reluctantly brings Ellie back to the apartment and takes a nap on the couch while they wait for Tess to come back. As Joel dozes off, Ellie tells him his watch is broken.
Your watch is broken.
This little throwaway line has so much deeper meaning. It's typical for kids to observe things around them and nitpick and question the things they see, and that's all Ellie thinks she's doing. But Ellie has no idea what that watch means to Joel. He doesn't wear it as a watch, he wears it as a reminder. The fact that Joel still wears a broken watch to remember Sarah proves that he hasn't fully closed off that side of himself. No matter what he tells himself, he's still a dad at heart. He's just living deep in denial. And little does he know, this kid will bring him back. Once again, Joel wakes with a start. We see that he's still tormented by losing Sarah, and he relives that horror every night when he goes to sleep. Ellie doesn't know exactly what it is that's torturing Joel in his sleep, but she recognizes that he's having a bad dream.
I hate bad dreams.
Yeah, me too.
This is their first of many bonding moments, and it's a glimpse at what their friendship will be like. Ellie has never left the QZ, so she's excited to get out there and explore the outside world.
Look how dark it is.
Joel sees an innocence and optimism in Ellie that he hasn't seen in 20 years.
Can't be any worse out there. Can it?
Why the hell are we smuggling an infected girl? So is that everything you hoped for?
Jury's still out. But man, can't deny that view.
On their way out of the QZ, Joel, Tess, and Ellie are all accosted by Fedra soldiers and scanned for infection. The whole thing is almost over before it's begun. Knowing that the scanner will pick up on her mutated cordyceps infection, Ellie stabs one of the soldiers, and Joel and Tess seize the opportunity to slaughter them in cold blood. Even though she's the one who kicked it off, Ellie is absolutely horrified by the killing and how casual they are about it. She naively thought they'd just hold them up like an old-timey western, but she's just learned the harsh but valuable lesson that outside the walls of the QZ, and even inside the walls in most cases, it's kill or be killed. This kickstarts Ellie's complicated relationship with violence, which will form the tragic, dramatic backbone of the story. She's shocked and disgusted by violence now, but by the end of this journey, she'll be so desensitized to it that she's capable of doing some truly horrific things herself. After taking out the soldiers, Joel and Tess see that Ellie's scan has come up positive. The mystery starts to fall into place. This whole time, Joel's been wondering why this angsty, foul-mouthed kid is so important to the Fireflies, and now he knows. Ellie insists she's immune. She was bitten 3 weeks ago and hasn't shown a single sign of turning. But Joel and Tess are naturally skeptical. The funny thing is, Ellie isn't supposed to tell anyone she's infected or immune. She's supposed to keep it to herself. But she doesn't make it more than 10 feet outside the QZ before she's found out. But since Fedra's out in full force to catch them, there's no time to discuss it now. After sneaking past the soldiers and making it out into the downtown area, Joel and Tess confront Ellie about her bite mark and her supposed immunity. Joel and Tess have spent 2 decades watching this fungus ravage the world and wipe out most of humanity, so it's understandable that they don't buy into Ellie's immunity straight away. When Ellie confesses that the Fireflies are hoping to use her immunity to create a cure, Joel mockingly shrugs it off.
They have their own little quarantine zone, with doctors there still trying to find a cure.
Yeah, we've heard that before, huh, Tess?
This line indicates that all hope for a cure is completely dead. There have been several attempts to fight back against cordyceps, and cordyceps has won every single time. Joel's response to a possible cure is cynical and pessimistic because he's been let down too many times. And even if the world could go back to normal, there would still be no Sarah in it, so as far as Joel is concerned, the world is over either way. Joel expects Tess to share his cynicism, but much to his surprise, she's with Ellie. She doesn't say it yet, but she believes in Ellie's immunity and the potential for a cure, and so does Ellie herself.
What if it's true?
I can't...
What if, Joel?
Tess walks off with Ellie, leaving Joel alone in the frame. He's alone in his skepticism, and he's alone in hating this kid. Joel barely talks to Ellie in these initial chapters of the game. To him, she's just cargo. But Tess actually engages Ellie in conversation and asks questions and answers her questions. It'll be a long time before Joel takes on a paternal role in Ellie's life, but Tess takes on a maternal role immediately.
This is the downtown area?
It was. Now it's a giant wasteland.
As you enter downtown, you find one of the most ominous artifacts in the entire game. A notice from Fedra warning that they'll be bombing the area. It's really eerie and dystopian. It says the people who live there have 48 hours to get out of the blast radius, and the QZ is not accepting new residents at this time. Imagine seeing that posted outside your house. Suddenly the COVID-era stay-at-home orders don't seem so bad. As you move through downtown towards the Capitol building where you're supposed to hand Ellie over to the Fireflies, you get a bunch more gameplay tutorial stuff. You learn about throwables like bricks and bottles. You learn how to kill clickers who have been infected for so long that they've grown a crusty suit of armor around themselves. But through all this tutorial stuff, you get all this rich relationship building between Tess and Ellie. Tess has to act as a sort of mediator between Joel, who's still barely acknowledging Ellie at all, and Ellie, who's terrified. Tess asks Ellie about herself and gets her to open up, all while Joel silently follows her orders. At the museum, Ellie tells Tess how she was bitten. She snuck into the mall and got attacked by a runner.
I'd sneak out. I was in this military boarding school.
You'd sneak out?
You know, explore the city. I was in the mall when I ran into infected.
On your first playthrough, this is just a fun piece of backstory that tells you a bit more about Ellie, but it becomes so much more meaningful after you've played the DLC, Left Behind. After playing Left Behind, we know that Ellie snuck into the mall with her best friend, Riley, who she was in love with. Riley got bitten too, and she wasn't immune, so Ellie had to kill her. But in relaying this story to Tess, Ellie purposely doesn't mention Riley and insinuates that she was alone at the mall.
That place is completely off limits. How the hell did you get in there?
I had my ways.
Much like Joel, Ellie lost the most important person to her in a really horrific way, and much like Joel, she's not ready to talk about it. After a close call with some infected in the museum, Joel, Tess, and Ellie cross a plank to the building next door. As Joel finally softens up and tries to be nice to Ellie by helping her across, she scoffs in his face, and he instantly regrets letting his guard down.
Now watch your step as you're going out, because it's going to be a little...
The look that Joel gives Tess is hilarious. It's a classic case where a look says more than any line ever could, and it's only possible when you motion capture a human performance and capture all the little details of a human actor's face. Ellie gets across the plank and gazes out at the Boston skyline with the sunrise on the horizon. This is a really welcome respite after a really tense few minutes of fighting clickers in a collapsing building. We get the first real bonding moment between Joel and Ellie when Joel joins her and asks if it's everything she was hoping for.
Jury's still out. But man, can't deny that view.
This is such a small moment, but it has a huge impact. It's all in the look that Joel gives Ellie. The glint in his eye, paired with the little glance down at his watch, tells us everything we need to know. This kid reminds him of Sarah, and he's starting to care about her. When they get to the Capitol building, Ellie awkwardly tries to thank Joel and Tess for taking her, even though they're just doing it for the payday.
I'm glad Marlene hired you guys.
What do you mean?
I know you guys are getting paid for this, but I'm trying to say things.
Ellie's always trying to do the right thing. She doesn't want to seem ungrateful or unappreciative. It's really sweet. And for Joel and Tess, this was just a regular Tuesday evening, so they barely acknowledge the thanks.
I'm trying to say things.
Yeah, thank you.
At the Capitol building, they find that all the Fireflies are dead, so there's no one to take Ellie off their hands. Joel is ready to give up and go home, but Tess is determined to find some clue as to where they were headed, and then she reveals why. During the scuffle in the museum, Tess got bitten, so she's not going anywhere. Ellie is the first to notice that Tess is infected because she's seen what it looks like, not just the symptoms, but the social cues and the state of mind.
Holy shit. She's infected.
Tess is the catalyst that brings Joel and Ellie together. Joel still doesn't believe in the cure and just wants to turn around and go back, but Tess does believe in the cure. Her bite mark is already worse than Ellie's after a few minutes, and before she dies, she makes Joel promise to take Ellie to the Fireflies.
There's enough here that you have to feel some sort of obligation to me, so you get her to Tommy's.
Tess wants Joel to do something right to make up for all the bad shit they've done, which is a bit of ironic foreshadowing because Joel will ultimately just end up contributing to the bad shit. When Fedra soldiers arrive at the door, Joel reluctantly leaves Tess to face them alone, and very reluctantly takes Ellie with him. Ellie isn't cargo anymore, she's a favor. After escaping from the Capitol building, Joel and Ellie are chased into an abandoned subway station full of spores. When Joel sees Ellie breathing in spores, he finally believes in her immunity, but he still doesn't like her all that much.
How the hell are you breathing in this stuff?
I wasn't lying to you.
When the smoke clears and they get out of the subway station, Joel lays down some ground rules. First of all, he tells Ellie to never bring up Tess.
Here's how this thing's gonna play out. You don't bring up Tess. Ever.
He clearly blames Ellie for Tess's death and resents her for it. He tells her not to tell anyone else about her quote-unquote condition, meaning her immunity, because people will either think she's crazy or try to kill her. He's so quick to dismiss this amazing thing that could change the world as an irritating inconvenience. He tells her to do what I say when I say it, enforcing a my way or the highway policy. That one's so important that he makes Ellie repeat it, and I love the little detail that Ellie doesn't actually repeat it word for word as a subtle act of rebellion.
You do what I say when I say it. We clear?
Sure.
Repeat it.
What you say goes.
Joel also tells Ellie to never talk about anything personal.
Matter of fact, we just keep our histories to ourselves.
He makes it clear that he's not interested in being her dad, her friend, anything. Of course, by the end of the game, Joel will let Ellie break every single one of these rules, and he'll break most of them himself. But he's still in denial that this is the universe giving him a second chance with a replacement daughter.
Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, I had somebody that I cared about. Somebody I had to look after. And in this world, that sort of shit's good for one thing: getting you killed.
The next section of the game picks up shortly thereafter as Joel and Ellie arrive on the outskirts of Bill's town. Bill is an old friend of Joel and Tess who owes Joel some favors. Joel has no idea where the Fireflies are, but Tommy does, so Joel is hoping Bill can get him a car so he can go and find Tommy and figure out where to take Ellie. When they get to the gate, Joel gives Ellie a boost for the first time to get the gate open, showing that he's starting to trust her. Within 5 minutes, you can see that Joel is already breaking his no friendship rule. Not only is he letting Ellie ask personal questions and answering them, he's asking her personal questions and actively getting to know her. As much as he doesn't want to admit it because he doesn't want to put himself in a position to get hurt again, he's starting to like this kid. Ellie starts opening up to Joel, and Joel starts opening up to her. They talk about music as they snoop around a record shop.
Man, this is kind of sad.
What is?
All this music that's just sitting here. No one's around to listen to it.
Joel tells Ellie all about his history with Bill and warns her that he's a bit unstable. And when they find an arcade game called The Turning in an abandoned pizzeria, Ellie tells Joel all about it. She says she had a friend who knew everything about the game.
I had a friend that knew everything about this game.
This is another touching reference to Left Behind, in which Riley walks Ellie through a game of The Turning on a broken machine. This is the first time Ellie has mentioned Riley. She doesn't mention her by name, but she talks about her. When Tess asked how Ellie got infected, she insinuated she was alone at the mall. But she tells Joel all about the friend who introduced her to The Turning, because that's a fond memory. It's a lot easier to talk about than Riley's untimely demise.
Mandatory evacuation.
Ellie sees a mandatory evacuation notice in the street, and Joel explains that in the few places that got a heads up about the cordyceps outbreak, people were immediately evacuated from their homes and sent to the QZs. Ellie says it must have been hard leaving all your stuff behind like that, but Joel tells her that ain't the hard part.
That ain't the hard part.
Ellie doesn't really know what he means by this, but we know exactly what he means. The hard part is your 12-year-old daughter dying in your arms, but he's still not ready to talk about that. As you move through the town, you get caught in one of Bill's traps and dangle upside down, fending off infected as Ellie tries to cut you loose. This is a really cool set piece with an interesting upside down combat challenge, but it's also another important building block in Joel and Ellie's relationship. It's the first time Joel relies on Ellie to save him, and if he didn't have Ellie there with him, he would have been screwed. This game isn't just 10 hours of Joel keeping Ellie alive, they're keeping each other alive. Bill arrives to save Joel and Ellie and gets them to safety, where Bill very reluctantly agrees to help Joel. There's a working car battery sitting in an abandoned army truck at a school downtown. All they have to do is cross the clicker-infested town to get to it, and Bill will be able to fix up a car for Joel. We see within seconds that Joel wasn't exaggerating about Bill. He's erratic, he's paranoid, and he talks to himself a lot more than he talks to others. I absolutely love the banter between Ellie and Bill.
Go ahead, take my car. Take all my food, too, while you're at it.
By the looks of it, you could lose some of that food.
You listen to me, you little shit.
No, fuck you!
Hey! What'd I say to you when we walked down the steps? What'd I say?
I'm just fixing your stupid pile.
Don't touch. What are you delivering? That little brat?
Haha, fuck you too.
Stay right on my ass.
Can't miss it.
Knock it off.
As much as I adored Bill and Frank's love story in the TV show, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, it would have been amazing to see Bella Ramsey's even more biting, more cutthroat version of Ellie performing some of these scenes with Nick Offerman. Bill is essentially Joel's ghost of Christmas yet to come. He represents the future that awaits Joel without Ellie. Alone and miserable, surviving but fully closed off. Bill has no one, so he talks to himself, he leaves himself notes, and he's basically going crazy. That's what isolation and not letting people in will do to you. He's alive, but what kind of life is that? Bill advises Joel to cut Ellie loose because she'll just drag him down.
You keep babysitting long enough and eventually it's gonna blow up in your face.
He claims he's much better off without his ex-partner Frank, but we can tell he's lying to himself.
Well, wisen the fuck up. And I realize it's gotta be just me.
Bill, it ain't like that. It's
bullshit. It is just like that.
Ellie starts expressing her desire to be armed in this section of the game. When Joel finds a bow, Ellie claims she knows how to use one and asks Joel to give it to her, but he refuses.
Let me use that. I'm a pretty good shot with that thing.
How about we just leave this kind of stuff to me?
Well, we could both be armed. Cover each other.
I don't think so.
When they get to Bill's armory, Ellie asks if she can have a gun, but again, Joel refuses.
What? I need a gun?
No, you don't.
Joel, I can handle myself.
No.
It's not so much that Ellie wants to kill, she wants to be one of the grown-ups. It's very kid-like to not want to be the kid and to want to be an equal. And in this fucked up world, being an equal to the grown-ups means being armed with a deadly weapon and knowing how to use it. After a particularly intense encounter with the infected, Bill tells Joel the infected don't scare him. As bad as they are, they're mindless and predictable. It's regular living people that frighten Bill. They're the ones capable of truly horrible things. Bill remarks, "You of all people should know that." Ellie asks what Bill means by that, but Joel kinda shrugs it off.
You of all people should understand that.
What does that mean?
Nothing.
I've seen it suggested that Bill is referring to Sarah's death, but I don't think that's it. I can't imagine Joel telling anyone about Sarah, let alone Bill, who's essentially just a work friend. I also can't imagine Joel letting a snide reference to his daughter's death slide, given how much it's impacted him and how much of that grief he's holding back. I think it's more likely that Bill has seen Joel do some really reprehensible shit. We'll find out more about Joel's dark past and the bad things he's done later in the game, but that's an early hint that there's a really violent, cold-blooded side to Joel that Ellie hasn't seen yet, at least not to its full extent. After sneaking through a neighborhood full of infected, Joel reluctantly lets Ellie climb through a doggy door in a garage so she can open it on the other side. He's starting to trust her a bit more and starting to see her not as cargo, but as a friend, another member of the team. Bill offhandedly asks where Tess is, since she and Joel are usually inseparable. Joel brushes off the question and just says she's busy.
Yeah, I thought the two of you were inseparable.
She's busy.
Yeah, sure. Busy. Sounds to me like might be trouble in paradise.
Yeah, something like that.
Ellie doesn't say anything, but she can see there's a reason he's lying. He's not ready to tell other people about Tess's death because he's not ready to face it himself. He's not even ready to face Sarah's death, and that happened 20 years ago. While they're crossing town and searching a house for supplies, Ellie comes to Joel and privately tells him she's really sorry about what happened to Tess.
I just want to say I'm sorry about Tess. That's it. I won't bring it up again.
Ellie, you don't need to worry about me.
She sees he's hurting and she reaches out to him. It's really sweet, but he's still not ready to confront it, so he just brushes her off. This shows once again that Ellie is always trying to do the right thing, and it shows once again that she has more emotional maturity at 14 years old than this grown-ass man has in his early 50s. I don't think it's a coincidence that Ellie approaches Joel to offer her condolences right after Joel finds a child's diary detailing the terror of the outbreak. The kid writes about how his school was closed, and even though his parents were putting on a brave face, he could tell something really bad was happening. This kid's harrowing account of the outbreak is juxtaposed with Ellie's experience of a tragic loss, pointing back to the central theme of the game, childhood innocence lost. When they finally get to the school and they've got a horde of infected bearing down on them, Bill is dismayed to find that the battery is gone. They sneak through the school, which is also infested, and barricade themselves in the gym. Here we're introduced to a friendly fella who's been infected even longer than a clicker. A big fat bastard that Joel dubs a bloater. He's basically a zombified Incredible Hulk, but he's pretty easy to defeat if you just use the Alan Partridge method.
We draw the gun from the holster, knock the safety catch off, there's one in the chamber, and move and fire, and move and fire, and move and fire.
They manage to escape the school and make it to a house across the road, where Bill sees a familiar face hanging from a noose, his ex-partner Frank.
He's the only idiot that would wear a shirt like that.
The good news is Frank has taken the battery, put it in a car, and got it working. The bad news is Frank got infected and hanged himself to avoid turning. And what's worse, while Joel is searching the house for supplies, he finds a bitter suicide note with some not so flattering things to say about Bill. When Joel gives Bill the note and he reads it, Bill puts on a brave face and acts like he doesn't care, but he's clearly heartbroken.
Well, that's how you feel. Well, fuck you too, Frank.
When he sees Bill's well-guarded devastation, Joel is reminded once again that there's loss around every corner in this world. But he also sees what will happen if he keeps pushing people away. He starts being more fatherly towards Ellie.
You gonna be okay with this?
Yeah, not a problem.
You're doing a good job. I figured you should know that.
When she gets behind the wheel to help them jumpstart the car, all Bill can do is complain about her mistakes, but Joel is kind and encouraging.
Hey, good job, kid.
Bill, not helping. Ellie, we're gonna give it another go. Stay focused.
When Joel and Ellie drop Bill off and they part ways with the car, Joel stops Bill to try and console him over Frank's death, the way Ellie tried to console him over Tess's death. Joel wants to say something to Bill about this recent tragedy. He knows he should say something, but he has no idea what the right thing to say would be. The only words of condolence Joel can muster up are, "That's a tough deal."
Bill, about your buddy back there, that's a tough deal.
But Bill is even more closed off than Joel, and he simply tells Joel to get the fuck out of his town.
We square.
We're square.
And get the fuck out of my town.
Joel just nods because he sees the reflection of himself that the universe is holding in front of him, and he's heard the message loud and clear. The bonding between Joel and Ellie continues as they hit the road. On the drive to Pittsburgh, Ellie discovers Savage Starlight and porn. Ellie pulls a great prank with Bill's porno mag.
Why are these all stuck together? I'm just fucking with you.
And she introduces Joel to her new pop cultural obsession. Joel recognizes Sarah's Dawn of the Wolf fandom and Ellie's love of these sci-fi comics, and even starts collecting them for her. Ellie cracks her first of many jokes about Joel's advanced age as she hands him a Hank Williams cassette and asks if it makes him feel all nostalgic. Joel says the tape is a winner and puts it on.
Well, better than nothing.
The Last of Us is essentially a bleak anti-western like Unforgiven or No Country for Old Men set in a post-apocalyptic future, and the Hank Williams songs tie into those western vibes. When Ellie says the classics of country legend Hank Williams are better than nothing, and Joel is again reminded of Sarah, who wrote in her birthday card that they had very different taste in music, he looks at her in the rearview mirror with a father's gaze. This road trip sequence highlights some of the classic challenges of parenting. Joel wants Ellie to get some sleep, but she insists she's not even tired. Cut to, she's fast asleep.
Why don't you try to get some sleep? Right.
I'm not even tired.
This is a really dark, heart-wrenching game, but it also has some huge laughs. Sometime later, Joel and Ellie roll into Pittsburgh. This is where we learn firsthand what Bill was talking about when he said some of the survivors are even worse than the infected. This entire city is run by a ruthless militia that gun people down for their shoes and murder children because they slow them down. This is where The Last of Us matches the grim brutality and intensity of two of its biggest influences, The Road and Children of Men. As Joel and Ellie pull into town, a seemingly wounded man jumps out in front of the car asking for help. Ellie wants to help him, but Joel instantly recognizes the con. When it becomes clear Joel isn't stopping, the man pulls out a gun and opens fire. At this point, the rest of his gang come running out to ambush them. Joel and Ellie are shot at, they have a cinder block thrown at their windscreen, and they're run off the road by a bus. After Joel has dispatched all the hunters and there's a brief moment of calm, Ellie asks how Joel knew the guy wasn't hurt. Joel says he's been on both sides of that ploy before. This gives us another hint at the part of Joel's past we didn't see, the dark days. Not only has Joel run afoul of this kind of unscrupulous human-hunting scum of the earth before, he implies that he used to use those deplorable methods to survive. Once upon a time, he was one of these guys. Ellie asks if Joel killed a lot of innocent people, and Joel just grunts, to which Ellie hilariously replies, "I'll take that as a yes."
So, you kill a lot of innocent people? We'll take that as a yes.
That seems like the correct reading. He doesn't confirm that he did kill a lot of innocent people, but he doesn't deny it either. And that's the kind of thing you'd deny if you didn't really do it. The encounters in the bookshop and the hotel, where you have to massacre dozens of hunters before they kill you first, give Naughty Dog another chance to show off their unparalleled stealth combat action. But these encounters in particular also have an important story function. It's where we start to see the impact all this violence is having on Ellie. Ellie reacts with panic and horror every time you kill someone. She's being forced to witness all these horrific things at such a young age.
Oh man. Oh my god. Fuck.
You're not just clearing out a couple of buildings, you're traumatizing a child and desensitizing her to the worst brutality that people are capable of. Ellie gradually becomes numb to the act of killing, which will feed into her tragic arc in part 2, but she's initially shocked and disgusted by it. After clearing out the hunters in the hotel and sneaking across a broken lift, the lift cable snaps and Joel and Ellie get separated. Joel has to get through the dark hotel basement to find his way back up to Ellie. To open the door, you need a key card, and for the key card to work, you need to get the power on. So there's a lot to do before you can escape this basement, and you're being terrorized by a bloater and a bunch of stalkers the entire time. It's a fucking nightmare. This hotel basement sequence is easily the scariest section of the game. It's the only part I actively dread when I replay the game. When you finally get the power on and get the keycard to the door, bloodthirsty stalkers on your tail, I absolutely hate how nonchalantly Joel gets through the door. He acts like he has all the time in the world and there aren't fungal monsters trying to kill him. Joel and Ellie's brief separation sets up a key turning point in their relationship, and in Ellie's fucked up coming of age journey through this violent kill or be killed world. When Joel is caught off guard by a hunter and drowned in a puddle, Ellie saves his life. She grabs his gun and kills the hunter. Ellie's immediate response to the killing is one of my favorite lines in the whole game.
I shot the hell out of that guy, huh?
She's traumatized and can't believe what she's just done, but Ellie being Ellie, she's masking it with levity and humor. Ellie is clearly shook up. She just committed her first kill at age 14, and Joel handles it terribly. Instead of thanking her for saving his life or comforting her at this traumatic time, he just gets angry at her for not staying back like he told her to. This is the final straw for Ellie. She's had enough of taking shit from Joel, so she finally stands up for herself. She tells Joel what he should have said to her.
How about, hey, Ellie, I know it wasn't easy, but it was either him or me. Thanks for saving my ass.
Once again demonstrating that she's more emotionally mature than he is. As they figure out a way out of the hotel and Ellie switches between giving Joel the silent treatment and making snarky remarks, he mutters to himself, I hate this crap.
I hate this crap.
He's being reminded of the worst parts of being a dad. Hell hath no fury like a child scorned. If your kid is disappointed in you, they'll let you know it, and they won't let it go for a really long time. But what Joel needs to realize in this situation, and eventually does, is that he's in the wrong. Although Ellie is obviously traumatized by killing the hunter, she'll frame the story very differently in the future. The way she tells this story to Dina in part 2 is more matter of fact, almost with a bit of pride. She tells it as a real anecdotal story, like she sees it as a rite of passage.
I just ran in there, grabbed his gun, and shot the guy in the face.
Dina, on the other hand, is really reserved and short on details when she tells the story of her first kill.
Guy was coming at my mom. I stabbed him.
She's clearly not proud of it and doesn't like talking about it. This highlights the difference between Ellie and Dina and how complicated Ellie's relationship with violence is. But we'll get to that when we cover part 2. When Joel and Ellie get out of the hotel and onto some scaffolding, they see more hunters hanging around the courtyard. Joel realizes he might not be able to take them all out himself, and with that realizes he should have handled the situation with Ellie differently. He gives Ellie a rifle so she can cover him if things go awry down there, showing that he not only trusts her, but trusts her with his life. He's a little disheartened when she reveals that her only experience with a rifle is shooting rats with BBs.
I sort of shot a rifle before, but it was at rats.
Rats?
With BBs.
The look on Joel's face is priceless. He can't believe he's putting his life in this kid's hands. Before heading down into the courtyard, Joel tells Ellie it was either him or me.
And just so we're clear about back there, it was either him or me.
Ellie's words have had time to sink in, and Joel realizes she's right. As he heads down, Ellie snidely mutters, "You're welcome."
You're welcome.
She realizes this is the closest she'll get to a thank you, and from a guy like Joel, that'll do. Once the courtyard has been cleared and Ellie is safe to come down, Joel gives her a handgun to protect herself. It shows just how broken and fucked up this world is, that getting a gun and being trusted to kill people is a childhood milestone. First kiss, first love, first driving lesson, first kill. Joel is starting to see Ellie as a partner, not just a burden. After a handful of the encounters in Pittsburgh, Ellie says endure and survive, the catchphrase of her new favorite comic book.
The edge of the universe and back. Endure and survive.
Excuse me?
Savage Starlight. The comic I've been reading? That's what the hero says after a big battle.
Endure and survive.
Ellie applying comic book wisdom to these horrific scenarios highlights the power of stories. Savage Starlight has given Ellie hope in a hopeless world, just like The Last of Us itself has given me and countless others hope in a not quite as hopeless but still pretty hopeless world. On the way through Pittsburgh, Ellie sees a bunch of Dawn of the Wolf posters.
These posters are everywhere.
Joel tells her he watched it right before the outbreak. She asks who dragged him to see it, knowing that a stoic grown man wouldn't willingly watch a sappy teen movie of his own volition, but he says he doesn't know.
Who dragged you to see it then?
I don't know.
He knows exactly who dragged him to watch Dawn of the Wolf, and we know exactly who dragged him to watch Dawn of the Wolf, but he's still not ready to talk about her. As they get deeper into Pittsburgh, Joel and Ellie eventually stumble across the Hunter's greatest asset, their armored truck. This truck is a big, loud metaphor for the violent chaos of this world, the death and destruction tearing Ellie's childhood asunder. After Joel and Ellie manage to slip past the truck's line of fire and sneak into a nearby block of flats, we're introduced to the next major characters, Sam and Henry.
I'm Henry. This is Sam.
Sam and Henry are a pair of brothers who are similarly trying to escape Pittsburgh and find the Fireflies. Sam and Henry are a mirror image of Joel and Ellie. Henry, like Joel, is a cautious protector, and Sam, like Ellie, is a little kid who shouldn't have to witness all this violence. After she's been traumatized beyond belief and forced to kill, we finally get to see Ellie just be a kid. She and Sam become instant friends, because it's rare that they get to meet another kid in this world. As Henry points out, it's been a while since Sam even cracked a smile, but when he's playing football and throwing darts with Ellie, he's laughing hysterically, having the time of his life. We see that Henry has fully embraced the love and responsibility that Joel is still trying to avoid taking on, and it doesn't end too well for him. When Sam tries to take a little robot action figure from a toy shop, Henry forbids him, because their rule is we only take what we need.
The rule? What is it? We only take what we have to. That's right.
Joel has a lot of rules for Ellie. No personal stuff, no mention of Tess, do what I say, but that's not one of them. Seeing how much Sam wants the toy, Ellie grabs it to give to him later on. Henry's rule makes sense ethically, but what we need has a very broad definition. Sam doesn't need a toy to survive, it won't protect him or nourish him, but what's the point of survival if you can't have any fun? Henry's strictness with Sam gives Joel a chance to hear how he sounds when he bosses Ellie around.
How is it that you're never scared?
Who says that I'm not?
She doesn't seem bothered by all this.
Thanks, Joel. Sam!
The hell? This is your fault.
This is nobody's fault, Henry.
It's all your fault.
Henry! Henry, no!
After the escape from Pittsburgh doesn't exactly go to plan, because the bridge they were planning to use has been bombed out. Joel and Ellie wash up on a beach and have to follow Sam and Henry through a sewer system to get to their destination in the suburbs. In the sewers, we're treated to the saga of Ish. This is the most compelling chain of letters until the tale of Boris Legasov in Part 2. It's a perfect example of this franchise's ability to tell a story within a story. I've seen some people say they wish Ish's story had been adapted into a standalone episode of the TV series, and I wouldn't have complained if they did that. But there's something about the epistolary nature of the story that makes it hit differently in the game. We get this whole conception of a once thriving community full of happy families while wading through the ruins and fighting off the zombified remains of the ones who weren't lucky enough to be killed. It's much more haunting to read about what happened to Ish and his friends long after they've all died or become infected. Telling it as a straightforward story in live action wouldn't have the same impact as gradually piecing it together from those letters. After getting through all the infected lurking in the sewers, Joel, Ellie, Sam and Henry emerge into a suburban neighborhood.
Oh, are you fucking kidding me?
It's a straight shot to the radio tower they're trying to get to. They just have to get past some houses. They talk about some old world stuff like barbecues and pet dogs before Ellie spots an ice cream van.
Henry told me about these. They sell ice cream out of the truck.
What? No way. Joel?
That's true. This thing would drive around and play real loud, creepy music, and kids would come running out to buy ice cream.
You're totally fucking with me.
Serious.
Man, you lived in a strange time.
It's always fascinating to me to see how, from Ellie's perspective, our world is weird. Her world, full of mushroom zombies and bombed out skyscrapers, is normal, at least to her. We also see this when Ellie sees a picture of a model in the window of a lingerie shop, and Joel explains that even though there was plenty of food in the old world, some people chose not to eat it to maintain a slim figure. Ellie is baffled by that.
That's stupid.
After making their way through the burbs, they find a way down to the street where they saw the radio tower, and then they're tormented by a sniper.
Get out!
This is a classic gameplay feature, an unseen sniper with unlimited ammo. You can't see them and you can't stop them, so you have to go around them. This function is later used to brilliantly subversive effect in Part 2. Part 1 puts a fun spin on the trope too, since you get to take over the sniper rifle after taking out the shooter. Suddenly more hunters show up, the truck shows up, and a horde of infected show up. Suffice to say, you put that unlimited sniper ammo to good use. Finally, they make it to the radio tower. After some initial contentiousness between Joel and Henry, they're getting along like a house on fire. These four have become a full-blown blended family, telling stories, joking around with each other. And then, because this is The Last of Us, it takes a really dark turn. When Joel and Henry are talking about motorcycles, Henry says, "I'd die happy if I could just ride one around the block."
I could die happy if I could just ride one around the block.
Little does he know, that line darkly foreshadows his immediate fate. He won't die happy at all, and not just because he didn't get to ride a Harley. Ellie goes to talk to Sam, who seems distracted and agitated. He asks Ellie how she manages to never be scared, but she confesses that she is.
How is it that you're never scared?
Who says that I'm not?
Sam asks Ellie what scares her, and she jokingly answers scorpions.
Scorpions are pretty creepy.
But when she sees that Sam isn't in the mood for a joke answer, Ellie gives him the real answer.
Being by myself? I'm scared of ending up alone.
This sets up her upcoming monologue to Joel, and it's especially tragic considering what awaits her in part 2. Sam is scared of the infected and worries that the people are still in there, that they're still conscious but unable to control their bodies. When Ellie leaves, Sam reveals why this is bothering him so much. He's been bitten, so he's terrified that'll happen to him. The next morning, an infected Sam attacks Ellie. Joel reaches for his weapons, but Henry tries to stop him by holding him at gunpoint. When Joel goes for his gun anyway because he can't bear to let Ellie die, even if it gets him killed, Henry realizes what has to be done, so he reluctantly shoots Sam before he can fully consider the weight of that decision. After he realizes what he's done, he can't live with himself.
Sam?
Oh no.
Sam?
Henry? Ellie, stay there. Henry?
What have you done?
I'm gonna get that gun from you, okay?
Henry points his gun at Joel and says it's all your fault, but he's really talking to himself. Joel desperately tries to talk Henry down, but before he can, Henry kills himself. Joel is reminded once again of the devastating cost of being a parental guardian in this world. There's so much danger lurking around every corner that it's almost impossible to keep your kids safe. This likely cements Joel's decision to hand Ellie off to Tommy as soon as he gets to Jackson. He can't bear to go through this again and would probably end up like Henry if something similar happened to Ellie on his watch. Henry represents another one of Joel's possible futures. If he takes Ellie under his wing and embraces that responsibility, he could lose her and might not be able to live with himself if that happened.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel, but I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
On their way to find Tommy in Wyoming, Joel and Ellie have to pass through a hydroelectric dam. Joel reveals a bit more about his falling out with Tommy. The last words Tommy said to him were, "I don't ever want to see your goddamn face again," which casts doubt on whether or not he'll actually agree to help them get to the Fireflies. Ever the optimist, Ellie assures Joel with or without his help we'll get there, we being the operative word. Joel simply replies, let's just keep going, because he's already decided he's handing her off to Tommy. The worst thing a parent or parental figure can do is abandon their kid. Joel and Ellie have only been together for a few months at this point, but that's an eternity to a 14-year-old child. And don't forget, they were pretty eventful months. Of course, Joel isn't just randomly abandoning Ellie like a ten-a-penny deadbeat dad. He's scared of losing her the way he lost Sarah, even if he won't admit that to himself. After figuring out a way across the dam, Ellie goes for a high five. Joel can either give her the high five or leave her hanging. This is one of the only choices the game gives you. Last time it was whether or not to mercy kill an infected smuggler. At this point in Joel's arc, it feels more in character for him to leave her hanging, but you'd have to be a heartless monster to do that. She gets really upset if you do.
Really? Just gonna leave me hanging? Alright, we'll see how it is. Just like 5, just...
I only ever left Ellie hanging once to collect the trophy, and I felt so guilty that I restarted the checkpoint so I could high-five her. Denying Ellie a high-five haunts you a lot more than any kill. There's an optional conversation to be had off the side of the dam. It's easily missable, but it's also crucial to understanding Joel's mental state, and ultimately understanding Ellie's dark journey throughout part 2. Joel finds a tiny grave plot with a teddy bear on it.
That's too small.
The teddy bear reminds Ellie that she forgot to leave the toy robot on Sam's grave, and Joel quickly shuts down any mention of Sam. Ellie says she wants to talk about it, but Joel sternly says things happen and we move on. Ellie relents and says, "You're right."
I want to talk about it.
No.
Why not?
How many times do we need to go over this? Things happen, and we move on.
It's just...
That's enough.
You're right.
But the heartbreaking thing is that he's not right. Ellie's right. It's not healthy to bottle up your feelings, especially feelings of grief, but Joel won't hear it. When Sarah died, Joel just shut down and left it behind him, and he's been refusing to process her death for 20 years. Now he's doing the same thing with Tessa's death and Sam and Henry's deaths, and he's passing that unhealthy mourning tactic onto Ellie. Ironically, Joel's shove-it-deep-down method of processing grief will lead Ellie down a very destructive path when she processes her grief over his death in Part 2. As they try to pass through the hydroelectric plant to find Tommy, they're surprised to find that Tommy is there, trying to get the power back on at his nearby commune, Jackson. Although Tommy told Joel he never wanted to see his face again, when he does see his face again, he gives him a big hug. This tells us everything we need to know about these two brothers' relationship. They don't always get along, but they love each other unconditionally. Not only are we reintroduced to Tommy, we're also introduced to Tommy's wife, Maria, one of the leaders of Jackson. Maria is instantly likable. She loves Tommy, she's immediately very kind and motherly to Ellie, and she's a fair leader who doesn't overwork her guys and puts family first.
Go home to your family.
It's just a couple more hours. I'll tough it out.
All right, well, take it easy.
Maria lets Ellie come over and pet one of the horses. Ellie explains that a soldier in the Boston QZ named Winston, who'll be expanded on in Left Behind, taught her how to ride. Maria says they can take the horse out for a ride later, slyly foreshadowing Ellie running off with a horse later on. I swear this game has more foreshadowing than the Cornetto trilogy. As Maria takes Ellie to get a bite to eat, Tommy takes Joel somewhere they can talk in private. Tommy tells Joel that he went back to their home in Texas to see what he could salvage, and offers him a photo of Sarah that he found.
It's a little faded, but it still looks pretty good.
This is the first time Joel has seen Sarah's face in 20 years. I love the detail that Sarah is smiling at the camera, but Joel is smiling at her. But after being handed this photo, Joel turns it down like he's being offered a second cup of tea.
I'm good.
You sure?
I've said I'm good.
It shows just how closed off he is and just how deep his denial goes. As they walk across the plant, Tommy explains how Jackson works. They're a walled community, everyone chips in, they have plenty of food and supplies, and they have patrols to take care of infected and hunters. It almost seems too good to be true. Joel is initially skeptical, but it gives him hope that civilized society could actually be rebuilt, and the old ways aren't gone forever. Jackson is like the anti-Pittsburgh. Imagine how happy Sam and Henry could have been here. When they get somewhere private, Joel asks Tommy to take Ellie to the Fireflies, but he doesn't frame it as the desperate plea for help it is, like in the TV show. Instead, he frames it as a sales pitch.
I was supposed to deliver to the Fireflies. The way I figure they're your boys. You finish the job, you collect the whole damn payment.
But Tommy isn't buying the pitch. He thinks Joel is just in over his head and trying to skirt his responsibilities. So Joel finally drops the act and says, I need this. He's truly desperate.
Tommy, I need this.
Tommy still refuses to take Ellie off his hands, so Joel insinuates that Tommy owes him for keeping him alive, and then the real animosity between the brothers comes out. Joel may have kept them alive, but Tommy doesn't think survival was worth what they had to do, and says he's tormented by nightmares from their hunting days.
I bring you the cure from mankind, and you want to play the pissy little brother.
We ain't back in Boston. You lay your hands on me again, it won't end well for you.
The hell is that?
We're under attack.
The argument is cut short when raiders attack the plant. This is another great showcase of the brothers' relationship.
You still remember how to kill, right?
They go from being at each other's throats to fighting alongside each other at the drop of a hat. You have to shoot your way back across the plant to save Ellie and Maria. When the firefight is over and the raiders have been killed, Tommy sees Joel with Ellie, nurturing her and making sure she's okay, and realizes he's not just trying to pawn off his responsibilities. He actually cares about this kid, and he's scared he won't be able to protect her.
So we dove over these tables and this huge guy blasted with a shotgun.
Slow down. Listen, hey, are you hurt?
No.
Tommy tells Maria he needs to talk to her, and the game cuts to Maria furiously telling him absolutely not.
I need to talk to you.
Absolutely not. You tell him to go find somebody else.
The comedic timing of this sequence is spot on. It doesn't just avoid unnecessarily repeating exposition we already know, it uses that exposition skip for a great gag. It's framed with the perfect shot composition too, since we see the argument from Joel's perspective, with Maria yelling at Tommy in the background. When she comes over to tell him off, he grumbles, "Here we go."
Here we go.
You. If anything at all happens to him, it's on you.
From Maria's anger, Ellie figures out that Joel is trying to get rid of her and runs away.
Joel!
What is it?
That girl of yours. She took one of our horses and rode off.
Damn it. Which way?
Come on.
As Joel and Tommy chase after her, Tommy cautiously asks if Ellie pulls stunts like this a lot.
She usually pull these stunts?
Nothing like this. What's going on?
He's wondering what kind of uncontrollable problem child is Joel lumbering me with here. If I were Tommy, I'd be having second thoughts about taking responsibility for this troublesome runaway. When Tommy spots the missing horse at an abandoned farmhouse, Joel finds Ellie hanging out in a child's bedroom, reading her diary. We get another glimpse at how alien the old world is to Ellie. She's astounded that the biggest problems kids had to worry about back then was boys, movies, and which shirt goes with which skirt. When Joel arrives, she confronts him about abandoning her. This scene makes me cry my eyes out every single time I watch it. Sometimes I can hold out until Ellie's everyone I've cared for line, but once I get to that point, I'm a blubbering mess. Ashley Johnson's delivery kills me every time. Joel tries to make up excuses, but Ellie can see right through them.
Tommy knows this area.
Oh, fuck! Well, I'm sorry. I trust him better than I trust myself.
Stop with the bullshit. What are you so afraid of?
She can see that he's scared and presses him for the reason why, and then she drops the bombshell.
I'm not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
As soon as Ellie mentions Sarah's name, Joel cuts her off. That name has been rattling around in his head every single day, but this is the first time he's heard it said aloud in years. Ellie says she's lost people too, but Joel dismissively says she has no idea what loss is. And then Ellie delivers the line that turns me into a blubbering mess.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
After this line, it sinks in just how much Joel means to Ellie. He's the only person she cares about that she has left, and she doesn't want to lose him after losing everyone else. His instinct is to throw her love back in her face. He tells her she's not his daughter, and he sure as hell ain't her dad, which is so goddamn cold.
You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
She's visibly heartbroken. Joel is directing his anger at Ellie, but he's really angry that she's making so much sense. She's absolutely right, he is afraid. Both Tommy and Ellie can see it, and now Joel can finally see it in himself. On the ride back to Jackson, Joel has time to reflect on what Ellie said. He finally has to face how much she means to him, and he finally decides to take on that responsibility. Fuck it, I am her dad. He opens himself up to being hurt again, but he also opens himself up to being happy again. I love the way Joel frames it to Tommy.
Your wife kind of scares me. I don't want her coming after me.
We've seen this guy murder dozens of people and beat zombies to death with his bare hands, but his sister-in-law frightens him. I also love seeing Ellie's face light up when Joel tells her to get on his horse.
Ellie, get off your horse. Give it on back to Tommy.
He can't express himself very well verbally. We saw him tell Bill that the love of his life committing suicide is a tough deal, so he can't really apologize for what he said or even just say how much he cares about her. But actions speak louder than words. Joel does love Ellie. He's accepting his role as a father figure to her, and she can see that. Before Joel and Tommy part ways, we get our first glimpse at Jackson, and it seems to be every bit the old world utopia that Tommy described. Tommy tells Joel there's a place for them there, but they've got a mission to complete. They have to get Ellie to the Fireflies, create a cure for cordyceps, and save the human race. Tommy tells Joel the last Firefly base he knew of, the science building at the University of Eastern Colorado, and Joel and Ellie ride off into the sunset to find it.
Yoo-hoo! Fireflies! Care for mankind over here.
Get down! I'm okay.
You're not okay, Joel! Joel? Joel? You gotta tell me what to do. Come on. You gotta get up. Joel?
By the time they get to the university, Joel is in full-on dad mode. He's telling Ellie how football works and asking about her hopes and dreams. It's here that we're introduced to Ellie's dream of going to space, one of the key defining aspects of her character.
Hey, I was thinking I would have wanted to be an astronaut.
That a fact.
It's a joy to see Joel finally embracing Ellie as his daughter, letting his guard down and letting her in.
Well, when I was a kid, I used to want to be a singer.
Shut up.
I'm serious.
Sing something.
No.
Come on, I won't laugh.
I don't think so.
Joel, please.
When I was watching the TV show week to week with my dad and my sister, we had a running joke that whenever Joel and Ellie were happy and getting along, it meant something horrible was right around the corner. And sure enough, when they're getting along at the university, something horrible is right around the corner.
Aw, are those monkeys?
Unfortunately, the university turns out to be another dead end. They find a dead Firefly scientist with a recording saying the others have all gone to St. Mary's Hospital in Salt Lake City.
Do you know where that is?
I know the city.
Is it far?
It ain't close.
But just as they're about to start plotting their journey to Utah, Joel and Ellie are attacked by hunters.
Fireflies?
Get down!
Oh!
During the shootout, Joel gets mortally wounded, and now he's the vulnerable one, relying on Ellie to keep him safe.
Here, lean on me.
No.
Well, can you walk?
Yes.
Then fucking walk!
The dynamic is flipped on its head, and Ellie becomes the protector. It's shocking to see Joel stripped of his plot armor. Suddenly this hyper-capable, seemingly invincible Superman is helpless and weak, and the kid who's been looking up to him and leaning on him the entire time suddenly has to return the favor.
Put your arm around me. Alright, let's go. I swear to God, I get you out of this. You're so singing for me.
As they escape from the university, Joel passes out and falls off the horse. Ellie, who's been resisting Joel telling her what to do the whole way, now says, "You gotta tell me what to do."
You gotta tell me what to do.
She's frightened and in over her head, and she just wants her dad to make everything okay, but he's unconscious and unresponsive. And then we cut to black.
You gotta get up! Joel! Who's there? Come out!
Hello? We just want to talk.
Ellie is the little girl that broke your
Fucking finger!
Stop! Stop!
He tried to...
Oh, baby girl. It's okay. It's okay.
Joel!
It's okay.
We come back in the dead of winter, and now we're playing as Ellie, hunting a deer alone in the wilderness. It's a fun gimmick to play as Ellie, but it's also much harder. She's smaller, weaker, slower, and less heavily armed than Joel. I took Joel's beastness for granted. At first, it's not clear where Joel is, whether he's alive or dead, until Ellie bumps into a seemingly friendly stranger named David, and tells him she needs medicine and she's willing to trade some of the deer meat for antibiotics. Nathan Drake himself, Nolan North, was a great stunt casting choice to play David, who turns out to be the polar opposite of the charming Uncharted hero. But North completely disappears into the role. I can barely recognize his voice as Nate.
Turns out that the others had been slaughtered by a crazy man. And get this, he was with a little girl.
In these early scenes, the game gives us a ton of evidence that David can be trusted. He's nice, calm, agreeable, and fair. He sends his right-hand man James to get the meds to trade for some of Ellie's deer. They could easily just take it. Ellie can't even move the deer by herself. But David's a reasonable guy, or so it seems. He did lie about having a second gun, but that's understandable. At this point, he can't be expected to trust Ellie any more than she can be expected to trust him. David helps you out, keeps you safe, and saves your life a couple of times when a horde of infected show up. For all intents and purposes, David seems like a totally normal guy who just wants to feed the people he's looking after. This all plays with a really ominous subtext on replays when you know what David's true intentions are. Much like Joel and Ellie's many brushes with death, fending off the horde bonds Ellie and David, and then things take a sinister turn. David reveals that he knows who Ellie is. He's the leader of the group of hunters that Joel and Ellie killed at the university. We know that Joel and Ellie were acting in self-defense, but from David's perspective, these two lunatics massacred his good friends. It starts to become kinda weird that David still won't let Ellie die. He's clearly pissed off about all the guys he lost and he wants revenge, but when James comes back with a gun pointed at Ellie, David tells him to lower it. He wants Ellie alive, which hints at his disturbing motive without giving away the twist. Ellie takes the antibiotics back to Joel and we see that he's still alive, barely. She gives him the medication, but she has no idea what she's doing. All she can do is administer the drugs and hope for the best. She lies down and sleeps next to Joel, which is a really heartwarming image. She won't leave his side. In this moment, she is his daughter, and he sure as hell is her dad. Sadly, this sweet moment is short-lived. Ellie sees that David's guys have tracked her back to her hideout, so she has to leave Joel's side again to lead them away. Ellie takes David's guys on a wild goose chase, and the whole way they keep saying David wants her alive. Ellie shoots her way through dozens of David's guys before being captured by David himself, but he still doesn't kill her.
Keeping you alive here.
She wakes up in a jail cell at David's resort. Outside the bars, she sees a butcher chopping up meat. Initially, we assume this is the deer from before, but upon closer inspection, it turns out he's actually chopping up a human corpse. Ellie sees him scrape a severed human hand onto the floor. So David and his guys are cannibals, but that's still not the worst part. The butcher sees that Ellie is awake and goes to get David. David comes in and tells Ellie he's been trying to convince the others to let her live so she can stay with them. He tells Ellie she has heart, she's loyal, and she's special. Then he reveals the real reason he wants to keep her alive as he ominously places his hand on hers. Not only is this creepy motherfucker a cannibal, he's a pedophile too. As David's guard is down, Ellie seizes the opportunity to break his finger and steal his keys, but she doesn't quite grab them in time.
You stupid little girl.
This leads to one of Ellie's most badass moments.
What am I supposed to tell the others now?
Ellie.
What?
Tell them that Ellie is the little girl that broke your fucking finger!
As David leaves Ellie in her cell, we're back on Joel as he wakes up. The second he comes to, his first thought is, where's Ellie?
Ellie.
Even though he's still recovering from a near-fatal injury, he immediately gets his shit together and goes looking for her. His kid is missing and he won't waste a second until he finds her.
Ellie!
Where'd she run off to?
The neighborhood is still crawling with David's henchmen, but Joel makes short work of them and drags two of them back to the house to torture them for Ellie's whereabouts. Here, we're introduced to the Miller family's signature interrogation technique. Joel makes one of the guys point out the location of the resort on a map, then asks his friend for the same information. It's the same technique used by teachers when kids are in trouble and they want to get an honest account of what happened. Question them separately. In part 2, we'll see the aftermath of Tommy using the same torture technique to get a gate code, and we'll see Ellie fail miserably in her own attempt to use this technique. A few minutes after we got one of Ellie's most badass moments, we get one of Joel's most badass moments.
Fuck you, man. I told you what you wanted. I ain't telling you shit.
That's all right. I believe him.
No, wait!
Back at the resort, David and James drag Ellie out of her cell so they can kill her, chop her up, and eat her. But at the last second, she tells them she's infected and shows them her bite mark.
I'm infected! I'm infected!
This is a genius move, and it's the first of many times that Ellie will use her superpower of immunity to get out of a jam. As they're looking at the bite mark with bewilderment, Ellie manages to escape, but she's not out of the woods yet. Now you have to take on several armed henchmen as an unarmed teenage girl. The hotel basement is by far the most stressful part of the game, but this is a very close second. David tracks Ellie to a steakhouse for a shit-scary boss battle. You have to sneak around this restaurant full of broken glass, trying to avoid the pricked-up ears of a grown man with a machete and a grudge. It's particularly terrifying when he starts crouching and sneaking around and you can't see him on listen mode. He could be anywhere. After David knocks Ellie out, we switch back to Joel, desperately trying to find her. He's made his way to the resort and he guns down everyone who gets in his way. After he finds some corpses hanging in a meat locker, he repeats to himself, I gotta find her.
I gotta find her. I gotta find her.
He won't even entertain the idea that this is Sarah 2.0, until he has some hard evidence, otherwise he holds out hope that he can still save her. This sequence is a nice subversion of the damsel in distress trope. The whole time we're cutting back and forth between Joel and Ellie, we're hoping that Joel will arrive in time to save Ellie. Imagine what Joel would do to David if he got his hands on him. But Joel doesn't get there in time, and Ellie has to save herself. But it's not a cool, heroic moment, it's just a devastating trauma, her most devastating yet. As Ellie reaches for David's machete, David pins her down and tells her, you have no idea what I'm capable of.
You have no idea what I'm capable of.
It's easy to imagine what he means, but it's still pretty vague. In the TV show, they managed to make this moment even more disturbing.
I thought you already knew. The fighting is the part I like the most.
At the last second, Ellie grabs the machete and slashes into David's arm. She hacks him to death like she's taking back everything this world has taken from her. First and foremost, her innocence. It's really satisfying to see David die, but it's equally heartbreaking to see the culmination of what this harrowing journey has done to Ellie.
Ellie! Stop! Stop!
She keeps hacking away with the machete long after David is dead, because she's not just fighting back against David's abuse. This is for Tess and Sam and Henry and Riley and everything else she's lost. Joel doesn't get there in time to save Ellie from David, but he does get there just in time to save her from a complete mental breakdown. This is something Joel knows how to do, comforting his kid when she needs him the most. His dad instincts kick in. This is another scene that always makes me cry. Joel calls Ellie baby girl, the same thing he used to call Sarah, which is a really beautiful detail.
He tried to...
Oh, baby girl.
It's okay. It's okay. Joel.
She's confused, she's panicking, she's full of adrenaline, and he holds her and reassures her to calm her down. Joel managed to avoid losing another daughter, but Ellie will never be the same after this.
Ellie! Ellie!
So, is this everything you were hoping for?
It's got its ups and downs, but you can't deny the view, though.
This time it's gonna be different. I just know it.
What do you mean?
They're gonna be there. The Fireflies.
She's not breathing.
Hands in the fucking air!
Come on.
A couple of months later, Joel and Ellie finally arrive in Salt Lake City and follow the highway exit to the hospital. While Joel is chipper and chatty, Ellie is unusually quiet.
Feel that breeze, huh? I tell you, on a day like this, I just sit on my porch, pick away my six string.
When Joel promises to teach Ellie how to play guitar, which will play a massive role in part 2, you have to prompt Ellie to reply and tell us what's wrong, because her mind is elsewhere.
What do you say, huh? Ellie, I'm talking to you.
Huh? Oh, yeah, sure, that sounds great.
This lively, talkative kid is suddenly all subdued and closed off. We're starting to see her childhood innocence disappear. The interactivity of the video game makes this kind of emotional storytelling so much more immersive and impactful. We are her dad trying to get her to open up. Ellie tells Joel about a dream she had where she was on a plane that was about to crash. The old Joel would have shrugged Ellie off or told her to shut up, but now he actually listens because he's genuinely interested and he wants her to speak her mind.
I dreamt about flying the other night.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Go on, tell me about it.
As you head through a bus station, you spot a ladder hanging off a ledge. You go to give Ellie a boost up to the ledge so she can drop the ladder down for you, just like she's done a million times throughout the game. It's become like clockwork at this point. But this time, Ellie doesn't go for the boost. It turns out she's not even listening. You have to prompt her again to help with the ladder. This is another way the gameplay directly involves you in the emotional storytelling. It's heartbreaking to see Ellie so distant and distracted because we know exactly what she's distracted by. All the horrible, traumatic things that have happened to her. Joel gives Ellie a boost up, and while she's grabbing the ladder, she sees something off screen. She drops the ladder and runs off, and a panicked Joel frantically picks up the ladder, climbs up to the ledge, and chases after her. You're worried something bad will happen. Maybe there's yet another group of evil sons of bitches up there. But it turns out she was distracted by a giraffe who wandered over from the abandoned local zoo. Ellie is enamored with this majestic creature.
So fucking cool.
Joel brings her over to pet it, and she rushes over to watch it reunite with its friends. Ellie's innocence isn't gone altogether. There are still fragments of it left. She's been to hell and back, but it hasn't broken her. Giraffes have been seen all over the game, from the giraffe toy in Sarah's room to the giraffe scrawled on the wall of Ish's sewer hideout. And now we finally see why. The giraffes symbolize Ellie's innocence and childlike wonder, and the rare glimmer of beauty and majesty that still exists in this post-apocalyptic world. Santolaya's score for this moment is absolutely perfect. It's gentle and tender with a slight ring of hope. Joel and Ellie's incredible journey is bookended beautifully when Joel joins Ellie watching the giraffes, and there's a touching callback to their earlier conversation on the outskirts of the Boston QZ.
So, is this everything you were hoping for?
It's got its ups and downs, but you can't deny the view, though.
Joel starts to have second thoughts about handing Ellie over to the Fireflies. Right now, he's all about protecting his daughter and protecting this bond that's grown between them. When they reach the Fireflies, they might take her away. He doesn't want to keep going and keep risking her life. He just wants to turn back, return to Jackson, and settle into a peaceful, stable life with his family. But he frames it as Ellie's choice, and she wants to go through with it.
After all we've been through. Everything that I've done. It can't be for nothing.
For Ellie, if they can just get to the Fireflies and turn her weird, mutated brain into a cure for humanity, then all the horrific things that have happened to her, and all the horrific things she's been forced to do, will all be worth it. If they've been through all that horror and trauma and nothing good comes of it, then it'll be meaningless. As Ellie heads onwards to the hospital, Joel turns back and sees the last of the giraffes disappearing into the distance. This poignant image is symbolic of what Joel is afraid of now, that Ellie will leave, that he'll have to say goodbye and lose his kid. It pains his heart almost as much as losing her would. Ellie appreciates what Joel is trying to do, giving her the option to turn around and abandon their mission, but she says there's no halfway with this. Joel sums it up perfectly in his Part 2 recap.
She needed her immunity to mean something.
She lost everything and everyone she ever cared about. All she has now is the hope that her immunity could do some good. There's a bit of morbid foreshadowing when Joel makes an offhand remark.
Once we're done, we'll go wherever you want. Okay?
Well, I ain't leaving without you. So let's go wrap this up.
We're about to learn he'll do whatever it fucking takes not to leave without Ellie. Wrap this up means murder everybody and doom the human race. But we'll get to that. Outside the bus station, they find a triage, a bunch of medical tents set up right after the outbreak. Joel remembers being taken to an identical triage when shit went down. Ellie asks if it was after he lost Sarah. Instead of chastising her for mentioning Sarah's name, Joel says yes, it was. Ellie has a really beautiful line expressing her sympathies for Joel's loss.
I can't imagine losing someone you love like that. Losing everything that you know. I'm sorry, Joel.
That's okay, Ellie.
And then she gives Joel the photo of him and Sarah. She stole it from Maria back at the dam, and this time he takes it. Looking at the picture, Joel finally confronts his grief, processes it, and accepts it.
Well, no matter how hard you try, I guess you can't escape your past. Thank you.
Since the path to the hospital is blocked, they have to cut through an underpass. Ellie is more hopeful than she's ever been that they'll find the Fireflies, create a cure, and make it all worthwhile.
This time it's gonna be different. I just know it.
What do you mean?
They're gonna be there. The Fireflies. I'm sure of it.
They've been let down so many times, but this time she really believes they'll be there and it'll all work out. On the way through the tunnel, you have one last massive infected encounter. Multiple bloaters, a handful of clickers, and a fuck ton of runners, to hammer home just how much this world needs a cure. If you get caught by the infected and have to shoot your way out of this encounter, Joel says endure and survive, joining in Ellie's Savage Starlight fandom and the optimism that came with it.
Endure and survive.
He also says we killed him, acknowledging Ellie as a partner who helped him slaughter the infected, not just a kid he's looking after.
We killed him.
They're no longer a protector and protectee, they're a team. They climb over a truck into a flooded section, where Ellie asks Joel to teach her how to swim when they're done with their quest.
Hey, that's what we can do once we're done.
What's that?
You can teach me how to swim.
You got it.
All these plans for the future make Ellie's uncertain fate even more heartbreaking in a few minutes. When Ellie is hit with a sneak attack by a clicker, she expresses more hope about the possible cure.
Man, I can't wait for those things to be wiped out.
There's one last tedious bullshit pallet raft puzzle for good luck before Joel and Ellie find themselves in a flooded tunnel with a river rushing through rusted old rush hour traffic. This is an amazing action sequence. It's kinda disappointing that the TV show replaced it with a flash grenade, although I understand that's much kinder to the budget and the filming schedule. Joel and Ellie carefully climb across the vehicles stuck in the tunnel, slowly but surely making their way across. When they have to make a big jump, Joel encourages Ellie and promises to catch her.
You're gonna catch me?
I got you. See? You didn't even need me.
He's in full dad mode at this point. Things take a sinister turn when Joel and Ellie step onto a bus that becomes dislodged.
Ellie, move!
They race to the nearest ledge, but while Ellie makes it off the bus, Joel is knocked inside. I know nothing about physics or game design, but as far as I can tell, the mechanics of climbing up the bus against the rushing water is really impressive. I love how Ellie is trying to help Joel, but she ends up kicking the door into his head. The bus rolls over and Ellie is dragged away by the current. Joel squeezes through the bus door, swims through the rubble, and finds Ellie drowning. He races to save her, pulls her up to the surface, and desperately tries to resuscitate her with CPR. Here, Joel has to face the reality of losing another daughter, and he simply won't accept that. He keeps frantically performing CPR on an unconscious Ellie as a couple of gunmen come over and order him to freeze. He keeps administering chest compressions right up until one of the gunmen comes over and knocks him out. Cut to black. And now, the big finale.
Why are you letting this happen?
Because this isn't about me, or even her. There is no other choice here. Don't waste this gift, Joel.
Where is the operating room? Sweet Jesus.
Doctor?
I won't let you take her. This is our future. Think of all the lives we'll save.
I'm getting you out of here, girl. I got you. Come on. Tell me which way.
When Joel wakes up in the hospital, he's greeted by Marlene.
Welcome to the Fireflies.
Marlene is astounded that Joel made it all this way, but Joel doesn't take any credit.
It was her. She fought like hell to get here.
Joel wants to see Ellie, but Marlene tells him she's being prepped for surgery. The Firefly doctors have determined that Ellie's cordyceps mutation can be extracted to reverse engineer a vaccine. But the catch is that since cordyceps grows all over the brain, they'll have to kill Ellie to make the cure. And with that, we're introduced to the choice that will define the entire saga. It's a classic example of the trolley problem, but much more complex and on a much larger scale. Is it ethical to take one person's life if it'll save a bunch of other people's lives? For the Fireflies, it's worth sacrificing Ellie's life to save millions of others. But for Joel, there's no amount of lives that would make it worth taking Ellie's life. Marlene orders one of her guys to march Joel out of the hospital and send him on his way. But there was no way Joel was just going to go quietly. He grabs the guy's gun, tortures him for the location of the operating room, and embarks on a rampage to the pediatric ward. He slaughters every single Firefly that stands in his way, barges into the operating room, kills the doctor, and gets an unconscious Ellie the hell out of there. He calls her baby girl one last time as he picks her up from the operating table.
Come on, baby girl. I got you.
As Joel carries Ellie out of the hospital, chased by Fireflies, there's a beautiful mirroring of the image of Joel carrying Sarah at the beginning of the game. It brings the story full circle. It started with Joel desperately carrying his daughter away from danger, and it ends with Joel desperately carrying his daughter away from danger. I've seen a lot of people wonder why Marlene told Joel what was going to happen, but I don't think it's a plot hole. I think it makes perfect sense. Marlene needed someone to share the burden of taking this child's life for the good of humanity. She thought Joel would be on her side. She had no idea the emotionless smuggler she knew back in Boston would have come to love this kid like his own daughter. For Joel, there's no other option, which is Marlene's rationalization for the other side of the argument. When Marlene tells Joel he's gonna lose another daughter, Joel's only thought is, well, that's not gonna fucking happen. I don't care what the consequences are, that's not fucking happening. I already lost one kid, I'm not going through this all over again. No fucking way. He won't even entertain the idea of creating a cure to save the world if it means Ellie has to die. Marlene makes a lot of sense. Ellie's days are numbered in this cruel world, a world that desperately needs the cure that her mutated brain can provide. And it's what she'd want. But in Joel's mind, that logic does not compute. All he hears is, your daughter will die, and he can't accept that. Marlene tells Joel, don't waste this gift.
Don't waste this gift, Joel.
She means the gift of a cure for mankind. But for Joel, the gift that's not to be wasted isn't the cure. It's his second chance at fatherhood. The worst thing about Joel's decision isn't that he massacres a bunch of people. We've seen him murder countless people throughout the game, and the Fireflies would have killed him if he didn't kill them. The worst part is that he makes Ellie's choice for her. But crucially, the Fireflies tried to make that choice for her too. Both Joel and the Fireflies make good points, but it ultimately doesn't matter because it should be up to Ellie herself. By making one decision for Ellie, the Fireflies forced Joel's hand. Yes, he made a life-altering choice on her behalf, but if he didn't, the Fireflies would have made a different life-altering choice on her behalf. For the record, if this was the kind of game where you get to make the characters' choices for them and use those choices to determine the trajectory of the story, and there was an option to just walk away and let the Fireflies kill Ellie and make a cure, I'd still go back and save Ellie every single time. Throughout this harrowing journey across post-apocalyptic America, you've come to love Ellie just as much as Joel, and you've come to feel just as protective of Ellie as Joel. It's a shame that the cost of that choice is dooming humanity, but I wouldn't let Ellie die either. When Joel gets Ellie down into the car park, Marlene is waiting for him. She makes one last plea for Joel to hand Ellie over and let them make a cure, but Joel shoots Marlene. Realizing he won't leave the hospital without Ellie, Marlene begs Joel to at least spare her life, but he coldly says you'd just come after her and kills her.
You just come after her.
The message is clear. You will not take this kid from me. No one will take this kid from me. Joel's terrible decision-making continues on the drive back to Jackson. When Ellie wakes up and asks what happened, Joel lies to her. He knows that if he told her the truth, or even a part of the truth, then she could go looking for the Fireflies and put herself at risk. So he tells her there are dozens of immune people, and it's gotten them no closer to creating a cure. He has to destroy her optimism in order to destroy any chance that she could go back and get herself killed. This is even worse than the massacre. Ellie has seen Joel kill everyone in a building before, but the lie breaks the trust that Ellie has built with Joel, or at least calls it into question. Joel is a pretty good liar, but Ellie has a really good bullshit detector. She doesn't know exactly what happened at the hospital, but she knows he's not telling the truth.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
On the final leg of the journey back to Jackson, you're back playing as Ellie. This prepares us to go into her perspective in part 2, and gives us a third-person perspective of Joel, which we didn't get in Ellie's previous playable sections. Joel is the happiest he's been in years because a huge weight has been lifted. He stared back into the abyss, he faced the possibility of the worst day of his life happening all over again, and this time he rose to the challenge and kept the kid alive. It doesn't faze him that he just mowed down dozens of Fireflies. All that matters is that Ellie is safe. For the first time in the game, Joel talks openly about Sarah. He tells Ellie about the hikes he used to go on with Sarah and says he thinks Ellie and Sarah would have been good friends.
I think the two of you would have been good friends. I think you really would have liked her. I know she'd have liked you.
He can finally think about Sarah and say her name without feeling the pain that comes with it. But Ellie seems a bit off the whole time, giving short, abrupt answers and not really engaging with the conversation, like she's thinking about something else. As they get over the hill and Jackson is in their sights, whatever's bugging Ellie finally gets the better of her and she stops Joel to say her piece.
Hey, wait.
She tells him that when she was bitten, she wasn't alone. Her best friend Riley was with her and she got bitten too. Before Marlene found her, Riley turned and Ellie had to kill her. This is all expanded on and left behind. After Ellie lost Riley, she lost Tess, and then she lost Sam. The underlying point is that they were all infected, and they could have been saved by a cure. And not only that, all their sacrifices would have been worth it if Ellie had gotten to the Fireflies and turned her immunity into a cure. Joel tells Ellie that none of those deaths are her fault, but that's not what she's saying. He compares her loss to his.
I struggled for a long time with surviving.
I didn't notice until about my 20th playthrough that when Joel says he struggled for a long time with surviving, clearly referring to Sarah, he touches his watch, his last connection to her. He tells Ellie that she has to keep pushing forward and looking for the light.
No matter what, you keep finding something to fight for.
But that's not what Ellie needs to hear right now. That's what Joel has learned over the course of this journey. And then we get one of the greatest endings of all time. Joel isn't getting Ellie's point, so she cuts right to it.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you said about the Fireflies is true.
Joel will do whatever it takes and sacrifice whatever he has to hold on to his newfound daughter. He'll even sacrifice the relationship itself by lying to her, because he figures that's better than telling her the truth and risking losing her. Santalaya's beautiful music swells up as Ellie forces Joel to swear he's telling the truth. As we cut to the credits, The Path, A New Beginning plays on the soundtrack. This is perhaps my favourite Santolaya piece from the whole score. It ends the story on the perfect note. It's powerful, it's bittersweet, and it's not completely hopeless, but the hope of the giraffe piece is gone. It makes you sit with that ending and reflect on what it means, and reflect on the entire story. Much like the ending of part 2, this final scene is open to interpretation. There are a few different ways to read that okay. It could be, okay, I believe you. It could be, okay, but I still have my doubts. It could be, okay, you're gonna keep lying to me no matter what, so let's just try and move past this and see if we can salvage the relationship. Ashley Johnson plays it just ambiguously enough to mean whatever the audience interprets it to mean. But personally, I think it's that last one. She doesn't believe Joel for a second, but she does believe that he's resolute in his refusal to tell her the truth, so there's no use pressing for it. Most video games are made by putting the cart before the horse. The developers come up with a bunch of action-packed set pieces they want to include, then hire some writers to build a story around those big action sequences. What makes The Last of Us so special is that it was made the other way around. Druckmann prioritized story and character over action, and came up with the action second to complement those elements. And that's how he managed to give something as simple as the word okay so much weight in the final scene.
Okay.
So there you have my exhaustive breakdown of The Last of Us. I know I'm more than 10 years too late to the party, but I'm obsessed with this game, and I felt the need to channel that obsession into something productive, hence this video. I love stories that play with genre tropes like zombies and vampires and alien invaders, like Predator or From Dusk Till Dawn, and I also love stories that dig into human relationships and the human condition, and how we can overcome hardship and enrich each other's lives, like Little Miss Sunshine or Harold and Maude. What makes The Last of Us maybe my favourite story ever told is that it combines the two. It's just as human and emotional and deeply touching as something like Little Miss Sunshine, but it also has mushroom zombies and a dystopian police force in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Anyway, I've wasted enough of your time with my ramblings about a video game, so I'll let you get going. But remember, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.